Hi, everybody. Um, Today, I want to, in episode 3 on the Joy Life Center and how everything kind of happened, I want to talk about the miracle, how God, you know, opened doors. Uh, Only He could open. And, there are moments in ministry when something is far bigger than your own ability. The vision for the Joy Life Center was one of those moments. We knew God had placed the burden on our hearts, but we had no idea how God was going to make it happen. That's missionary. God gives you in your heart something that is from Him, and then all of a sudden, He's just like, okay, I'm going to make it happen, but I just need you to walk with me. And that's kind of what's been going on. And again, I'm traveling, and so the background is a missions apartment and those type of things. So I know it's not easy for you to sit there and just listen to some dude talk, but I thank you so much for your time and watching this. Um, a step of faith. That's something that God always requires, and I would say probably more so in missions, where everything you've done since He's called you to be a missionary has been a step of faith. It's a big step of faith to go. It's a big step of faith to prepare to go. It's a big step of faith, especially the way we do missions as independent missionaries, and traveling around to churches, raising support, maintaining support, packing your family up, moving them multiple times. I know I grew up in the ministry, and I'm probably have moved almost 27 times in my life, and I watched my dad take those steps of faith and my mom take those steps of faith all my life. When God first began stirring in our hearts about creating a ministry hub in Botswana, we honestly had more questions than answers. How would we find the right place? How would we afford it? I know oftentimes people look at missionaries, they think you got money, but we've never seen it. But how would we afford it? How would it even come together? But one thing we have learned in ministry is this: God rarely shows the entire path. In fact, I would dare to say He never shows the entire path. He shows the direction for the journey. He shows Himself. You should never doubt God. I mean, He brought you to where you are. He's going to take you to where He needs you to go. Um, you know, but one thing is that He usually just shows the next step. And we took that step in faith, and God began moving. And that's the story of the Joy Life Center. It's just been one step, one step, one step. Without knowing where the full path is going to go, we still don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. We still don't. We know what God wants us to do. We know what the end result looks like, but the journey is still very much alive, and we're still very much walking in faith on this journey. As we prayed and sought God's direction, He began leading us towards the possibility of securing that property that could become the Joy Life Center. We 3 or 4 years ago, I had met Kofa, and through Corella, and just very godly woman. Had no idea where God was leading all of us, and how He was leading. And this last year, we needed a place to train these new 9 guys that we have, these new 9 pastors. Biggest blessing God's ever given us, and biggest burden He's ever given me. But and so we wanted to do kind of a 2-week boot camp for these guys, and I wanted to sequester them from the world. I wanted to separate them from every aspect of their life, get them in a place, get them alone with God, and get them alone to focus on God, to focus on God's calling on their life, to focus on them. And so, because I knew the first step was going to be is to get the world out of them. And So we spent a whole week doing our Exchange Life program where, we train these guys to get rid of themselves and allow Christ to live through them. It was amazing that whole week. I mean, they were learning things they've never heard before about moving with faith, about moving with God. And, and on the Friday night, at the end of that week, Corella and I were there until 10 or 11 o'clock counseling these men. I mean, God just removed the world from them. And I saw young men who had been in our ministry since they were in high school start to develop this God reality in their life, allowing Christ to live through them. And it was just beautiful. I mean, just a beautiful time. And, we approached Kofa about using the property, and she had told us, what was going on, that, excuse me, the property was in foreclosure and the bank was going to take it. And we spent about a solid week in prayer, over this thing. We didn't know what we were getting into, and God, like I said, he doesn't show you the entire path. He just shows you the next step. And so God just laid it on our hearts. Okay, trust me. Let's do it. And we moved by faith, and all I had, the only tool I had available was social media. Some of y'all remember that. And I started posting on Facebook. We did the walkthrough. I did the interview with Kofa, all those things. And we had a very limited amount of time, I would say about 3 weeks, to save that property from the bank so that we could, purchase the property. And, that the money that we spent to save it from the bank was part of the price of the property. And so I watched God move miraculously. I mean, in 3 weeks, we raised next to $50,000 to secure the property from the bank. And that was such an amazing thing that, in 24 years of ministry, I've never seen God move that quickly. And it just solidified it in our hearts that, okay, this is what God wants. This is how God has chosen to move. And so as we prayed and we sought direction, he began leading us towards the possibility of securing this property that would become the J.O.Y Life Center. We weren't searching for something impressive or large. I just want you to understand that. We were simply asking God to provide a place that could be used for his work. Then God opened the doors to a property in Mogoditshane, Kofa's property, the one that you can go watch the walkthrough. It's still up on this channel. And it immediately stood out to us. It had space for ministry growth. It had space for future building. It had space for outreach opportunities, leadership training. But along with the excitement came the very real challenge, and that's the cost. This was a lodge. It was, kind of a, what we would call a strip mall hotel in the U.S., and it had 26 rooms. It had a meeting hall, a dining area, a lobby, all that kind of stuff. And the price was more than I could ever imagine. I mean, it's, by the end, we have about $350,000 more to raise to purchase this property. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, Lord, this is bigger than Mimi and I. It's bigger than the current supporters we have, and so it was just God telling us, move on faith, trust me. And I remember thinking to myself, I was in the gym one morning and talking to Joseph, my friend, who was helping me, learn some different things. And I remember him telling me one morning, he's just like, he was more than just a coach. He was a life coach, I guess, at that moment. And I was sharing with him what was going on. He saw I was kind of stressed out a little bit. And he looked at me and he said, Maruti, that's what they call pastors in Botswana. He said, God's got it. God's got it. And, and so I thought that was just kind of, an affirmation in my heart that, okay, let's go with this. Philippians 4:19 remind us, but my God shall supply all your need, not your wants. He will supply your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. And I don't have it. I would dare to say no one watching this video probably has that much money that they can invest. But God has it. God can do it. I've seen him do it. We saw him do it at Victory School in Ethiopia, where, I had one simple prayer. I was like, before we went to Ethiopia, I was like, God, I want to see this building finished, and I want to see a church planted on that building, on that property. And I watched God move in the course of 2 days, and we had the money we needed to do that. And so I know from history that God can do this. That verse has become one of the promises that all of us at Joy Missions have clung to, stepping into this. We remind each other of it every day because, sometimes even as missionaries, your faith can fail. Sometimes the pastor's faith can fail. And so we remind each other of that guiding principle almost daily, that God's got this. Because from the beginning, we knew this vision would only happen if God provided. I mean, it's his. It's his, and if he wants it, he's got to provide for it. And I know he does that through you. He does that through me. But the truth of the matter is it's all 100% a God thing. It's an astronomical number when I tell people that we got to raise $350,000. We only have like a year and months to do this now. But I know God could do it tomorrow if he so willed it. But I think God has us on a journey, meeting people, meeting new partners, meeting new supporters. I see God working almost daily, when you're out and about and people hear about what you're doing. And I'm watching people, get a hold of the vision and things like that. And so as we continued praying, God began confirming the visions in ways that strengthened our faith. That's what this whole journey has been about. I mean, it doesn't matter how old or young you are, God is always going to do things to strengthen your faith. And trust me, he has strengthened a lot of our faiths in Joy Missions. Doors opened for conversations with pastors and ministry partners. Supporters began expressing interest and excitement about the Life Center. We started meeting people that we've never met before on social media who came on, didn't even know us, and helped us raise that money to save it from the bank. We see so many things that God is just doing. It's easy to focus on what's not happening, but when you start focusing on what is happening, you're watching God move mountains, and it's amazing. Encouragement came at moments when we needed it the most. Trust me, there's been several moments that, I've spent nights in prayer over this thing, God, what, how, when, and oftentimes there'll be someone who just gives you a phone call out of the blue, or friends that listen to you talk, and just, I can't thank a lot of you enough for the encouragement that we've been getting. And over again, God reminded us that this was not our plan, it was his plan. It's easy to look at this and be like, what did I get myself into? I didn't get myself into anything. God got us into this because it's his plan, it's his will, it's his work. There were times when we felt stretched beyond our comfort zone. Trust me when I say that, but every step of obedience brought another reminder that God was leading. One of the greatest lessons that I think I have learned through this process is this: faith does not mean having all the answers. I know it's hard to hear sometimes when someone asks me a question and I'm just like, I don't know. But I know God. Faith does not mean having all the answers. Faith means trusting God when you don't have the answers. We have watched God provide encouragement, opportunities, and resources at exactly the right time. And, the last 24 years of ministry have taught us that over and over again. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the resources. We don't have everything we need. Mimi and I have probably spent the last 24 years just fighting in the ministry, just not with each other, but fighting in the ministry to keep everything afloat. And finally, we learn through age and through time, it's not ours to keep. It's God's to keep. It's God's to do. It's God's to perform. We just show up and God shows out. And we've watched God do that at just the right time in our journey. And while the journey is still continuing, we have already seen miracles in how God has brought this vision together. We planted a church on the grounds already. Corella wrote me a couple of weeks ago that there are people that were getting saved, and he said that a couple of Sundays ago they had to start pulling chairs from the rest of the property because they didn't have enough chairs. The church is growing. They're doing a fabulous job, working with God and watching lives change. God has brought this vision together. So that's what I wanted to share with you this time was about the journey that got us to the point where we are. In the next episode, I'm going to share something very exciting, what the J.O.Y Life Center will actually do, how it's going to impact lives and churches and communities across Botswana. But call to action, would you continue praying with us as we trust God to complete what He has started? Pray for our faith, pray for our strength. The devil does not like what we're doing at all. And he's showing up, he's showing out, but greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. If God is stirring your heart to partner with us, we would love to invite you to be part of what he's doing through the J.O.Y Life Center. I am available this year to come to missions conferences or come in to meetings, meet with small groups, voice chat online. I'm making myself available to anyone who would like to chat, even if it's a group of people or a church or whatever. But if God's stirring in your heart to partner with us, you can be part of what he's doing through the J.O.Y Life Center in Botswana. You can learn more about how to partner with us at joymissions.com because J.O.Y Missions, remember, we're always committed to living the gospel and loving every life. Thank you all so much for your time and watching this.